Israel's defense minister today said Gaza City was nearly fully encircled, the last chance for civilians to get out. On the coast road, those able to flee on foot, afford the cost of transport, of somewhere to sleep at the other end, were doing so as the city behind them continued to be pounded.
Everything's being fired at us. Everything's destroyed. There are explosions everywhere. There's nothing left for us.
Another reason for this renewed scramble, Israel's warning that this road would soon be partially blocked. The Israeli military said the checkpoint would be placed on the intersection of the Al-Rashid coastal road and what Israel calls the Netzarim corridor. Civilians would still be allowed south with inspections, but travel north back towards Gaza City would be prohibited. But this afternoon, no checkpoint, instead reports of approaching tanks and gunfire from the air. A patch of land meters away, repeatedly strafed. On one of the donkey carts, a teenager nursing what looks at first like an injured arm, but in reality is barely that. His left hand connected to his body by little more than bone. Injured by shelling that killed a woman and 2 young children as they too headed towards supposed safety.
When we got to the Netzarim crossing, we found out that there was bombing going on and tanks firing and quadcopters and people dead on the road.
The ground incursion into Gaza City remains slow. The Israeli army releasing these images today of its soldiers clearing ruined streets and buildings. From the air, the campaign is relentless. This still image all we can show of a strike near a water truck, leaving bodies scattered. The IDF yet to respond to our request for a comment. The International Committee of the Red Cross today suspending its operations in Gaza City because of the dangers. Yesterday, Donald Trump gave Hamas 3 to 4 days to respond to his peace plan, which would see it release all Israeli hostages and commit to permanent disarmament. Conflicting reports today on the early signals coming from Hamas leaders in Doha. Worth remembering that while the world has watched in real time Gaza's descent into horror, its people have been watching the world's response, perhaps never more closely than now.
The choices are difficult for Hamas, but I believe reason and the demands of the Palestinian people will make them agree to Trump's plan, regardless of its details. They have to say yes or no. At this stage, they can't maneuver.
Approaching Gaza's coastline, meanwhile, the dozens of boats making up the Sumud or Steadfastness Flotilla. The activists have refused Greek and Italian calls to offload and donate the aid they're carrying for Gaza, saying they want to highlight what they call an illegal blockade. Overnight, they say Israeli naval vessels approached and jammed their communications and navigation systems. Today, the former mayor of Barcelona, Ada Colau, saying they were prepared to be attacked and detained. Israel has warned the boats to turn back and has been preparing for what would be a complex multiple interception. In the last hour, activists have declared an emergency, saying they expect soon to be confronted by the Israeli Navy.
Well, earlier I spoke to James Elder from UNICEF, who's in Gaza, and I asked him what conditions were currently like there.
Well, I was in Gaza City yesterday, Christian. You're talking about 1,000 airstrikes in the space of a few weeks. I heard many in the small space time I was there. There is a level of panic among people, and there's also a level of deprivation. I was by a water truck and just seeing hundreds of people rush to it because they have not seen water in days. And time and again, people would ask me, are we safe in the south? Now, of course, the reality is, no, they're not safe in the south. I was at a hospital earlier today. Many children, Christian, who were in tents at night time, and there was an airstrike in a nearby tent. You can imagine how quickly shrapnel rips through a tent. So children who are paralyzed, children with head injuries, children with amputations, all in these so-called safe zones.
And what are the conditions and the supplies like in the hospitals?
Horrific. I was in Nasser just a few hours ago, Christian, and for the first time I'm seeing now corridors, hospital hallways, absolutely full of mums and newborns. Babies who are premature now. In the first 6 months of this year, 1/3 of all births were either premature or underweight, or they went straight to the ICU. So I'm meeting a little baby who was in ICU for 21 days and is now in a hospital hallway. These are first-rate hospitals, but they're just absolutely overrun. I've not seen this before, where we are literally talking about scores of babies. I've met women who've had miscarriages fleeing to the south. I met a mum in a tent 2 days ago in Noor who should be eating for 3 because she's 9 months pregnant, Christian, with twins. She's barely eating for 1. She spoke about, with her first child, the cravings that mums have. Her cravings are just for food. So the situation for mums, for newborns, is absolutely at the worst it's ever been after 2 years of this.
So do you have any sense of what that means for, what they call excess deaths? This is, not people killed by bombing or starvation, but people who are dying because of the conditions there now.
We don't. I mean, the one woman who had a miscarriage as she tried to walk from Gaza City to the south, and I spoke to a doctor in Nasser Hospital about this. He said he had 6 cases like that in the space of a day. I mean, Christian, on my very first day back here, and this is my 6th mission back to Gaza City, and I was committed to try and get to a hospital because I'd heard that there were actually some, volunteers going around to try and bring a little bit of energy and happiness, childhood back to children. I wanted to see that. I wanted to share that because there is an immense community spirit here. There's an immense spirit from parents, doctors, nurses. But at the hospital, Christian, within 30 minutes, I was in a tent outside. There were 4 children, all having been shot by quadcopters. In the hospital, there was a teenage boy who'd been down to one of these Gaza humanitarian funds and had been shot and was lying bleeding on the floor because there were no beds, no beds whatsoever for patients. Then a little girl came in, a little 5-year-old girl who'd been pulled from the rubble. Now, she survived, didn't even have any broken bones. But this little girl, Sham, was not yet aware that her sister and her mother died in that strike. And then I was in ICU, Christian. It's a makeshift ICU, and looking at a little girl, a 6-year-old girl, Aya, looking at the care, the love she'd had. She had these little bobs in her hair and clean fingernails, but she'd been in an airstrike. And as the doctor explained to me the severity of her situation, she died. She died in front of us. That's 30 minutes in a hospital, and that's a hospital getting the overflow from those people under attack in the north.
So, I mean, that's interesting what you say about quadcopters. We're not hearing a lot about deaths at these Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid distribution points at the moment. Is that still going on? Are people being shot still trying to get food?
Yeah, I haven't been to any of the most people end up in field hospitals, and I've not been to those in the south. In Al-Aqsa, in the middle area, yeah, there's an entire room of people who have injuries and gunshot wounds or shrapnel wounds who all say that these occurred whilst they were trying to seek aid at these sites.
James Elder, thank you very much.
Thanks, Christian.